Everyone in that courtroom thought the verdict was a done deal. They saw Samantha, a quiet, stay-at-home mum in a thrift store dress. And they saw her husband, Derek, a tech mogul with a shark for a lawyer and millions in the bank. They thought she was weak. They thought she was alone. They thought they could strip her of her dignity and leave her with nothing. But Derek forgot one crucial detail. He never actually asked who Samantha's family was. And when the courtroom doors swung open on the third day, he realized that signing those divorce papers was the biggest mistake of his life. The sound of a pen scratching against paper felt louder than a scream in the sterile quiet of the law office. Derek Reynolds didn't even look up from his phone as he pushed the document across the mahogany table. "Just sign it, Sam," Derek said, his voice bored. "Don't make this ugly. You know you can't afford to fight me." Samantha Collins. Reynolds for now looked at the settlement offer. It was insulting. 10 years of marriage. She had supported him when he was coding in their roach-infested apartment in Chicago. She had worked double shifts at a diner to pay for the servers for his first startup. She had raised their daughter Lily practically alone while he networked until 300 a.m. And now that Reynolds' tech was public and Derek was the face of modern innovation, she was an accessory that didn't match his new lifestyle. "Derek," Samantha said, her voice trembling slightly. "This gives me nothing. No alimony. Only weekend visitation with Lily. I'm her mother." Derek finally looked up. His eyes, once warm, were dulled and hard like polished steel. He adjusted his silk tie. "You're unemployed, Sam. You have no residence of your own. My legal team argues that you can't provide the stability Lily needs. Vanessa and I have a wonderful home prepared for her." Vanessa. The name hung in the air like toxic smoke. Vanessa Holt was Derek's 24-year-old PR manager. She was sharp, blonde, and everything Samantha wasn't. "You're leaving me for your employee, and you're trying to take my daughter," Samantha stated, not asking. "I'm moving on," Derek corrected, standing up and buttoning his suit jacket. "And I'm taking what's mine. You were great for the struggle, Sam, but you're not built for the success. You're simple. You're from nowhere. You have no connections, no degree, no fight in you." He leaned in his cologne, overpowering her senses. "Arthur Harrington is my lawyer. He's never lost a divorce case in 20 years. If you push this to trial, he will destroy you. He will dig up every time you raised your voice, every time you were 5 minutes late to pick up Lily, and he will paint you as unfit. Sign the paper. Take the small payout. Go back to whatever dusty town you came from." Samantha looked down at her hands. They were dry from washing dishes and gardening, the simple life Derek used to say he loved. She felt a strange sensation in her chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was a cold, heavy stone settling in her heart. She didn't sign. She pushed the paper back. "I'll see you in court, Derek." Derek laughed. It was a genuine, incredulous laugh. "Okay, Sam, don't say I didn't warn you. When Harrington is done with you, you won't even be able to afford a bus ticket out of here." He walked out, texting Vanessa before the door even closed. Samantha sat alone in the conference room. She waited a full minute to ensure he was gone. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an old, battered flip phone she kept for emergencies. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 12 years. It rang once. "Hello," a deep, gravelly voice answered. "Uncle Cyrus?" Samantha whispered, a tear finally escaping. "It's Sammy. I think I need to come home. But first I have a problem." There was a pause on the other end, followed by the sound of a chair scraping as if the man was sitting up straight. What kind of problem, Samantha? A war, she said. Then tell your father to ready the jet, the voice said calmly. We're coming. The Superior Court of Seattle was imposing, but Arthur Harrington made it feel like his personal living room. Derek's lawyer was a legend in the city, a man known for smiling while he gutted his opponents. Samantha sat at the defendant's table. Next to her was her attorney, a man named Mr. Henderson. Derek had laughed when he saw him. Henderson was a court-appointed lawyer because Derek had frozen all their joint accounts. He was an elderly man with a rumpled suit and coffee stains on his tie. He spent most of the morning shuffling papers and looking confused. Derek sat on the other side, looking like he was posing for a magazine cover. Vanessa was in the gallery behind him, wearing a modest navy dress that screamed responsible stepmother. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Beverly Thorne. Note you asked to avoid throne. I will use Judge Beverly Vance. Wait. Vance is also banned. Let's go with Judge Beverly. Haynes entered. Judge Haynes was a stern woman who didn't tolerate nonsense. We are here for the dissolution of marriage between Derek Reynolds and Samantha Collins, Judge Haynes said. Mr. Harrington, you may begin your opening statement. Harrington stood up, buttoning his jacket. He didn't use notes. He walked toward the judge, radiating confidence. Your Honor, Harrington began, his voice smooth as velvet. This case is tragic, not because of the divorce, but because of the deception. My client, Mr. Reynolds, is a self-made man. He built an empire from nothing. He has worked 18-hour days to provide a life of luxury for his family. And what did he get in return? He turned and pointed a manicured finger at Samantha. A partner who refused to grow. A partner who we will prove has been negligent, emotionally unstable, and is simply incapable of raising a child in the environment she is accustomed to. We are not just asking for separation. We are asking for full custody of minor child Lily Reynolds to save her from a life of mediocrity and neglect. Samantha stared straight ahead. She could feel Derek's smirk burning into the side of her face. Ms. Collins, Harrington continued, pacing in front of her table, has no income. She has no family support system. Her parents, as she stated in her deposition years ago, are out of the picture. She is a woman alone with no resources. How can she possibly care for a child? It was brutal. For 3 hours, Harrington paraded witnesses. He called the nanny Derek had hired without asking Samantha, who testified that Samantha let the child watch TV too much. He called a neighbor who claimed Samantha once looked stressed while getting groceries. Every word was a twisted version of the truth. Derek was winning. He was painting a picture of Samantha as a pathetic, lonely woman who was leeching off his brilliance. When it was time for cross-examination, Mr. Henderson, Samantha's lawyer, stood up shakily. No questions, Your Honor, Henderson mumbled. Derek let out a loud snort of laughter, which he quickly covered with a cough. Vanessa giggled in the back. The judge looked over her glasses. Mr. Henderson, are you sure your client's character is being assassinated here? We are waiting, Your Honor, Henderson said, his voice oddly calm for a man who looked like he was asleep. Waiting for what? Judge Haynes snapped. This is a court of law, not a bus stop. For the character witnesses, Henderson said. My client submitted a revised witness list this morning. It was approved by the clerk at 8:55 a.m. Harrington stood up, annoyed. I haven't seen this list. This is a surprise tactic, Your Honor. It's within procedure, Henderson said, shuffling his papers. We have the right to call family members to testify to the mother's fitness. Derek leaned over to Harrington. Family members? She doesn't have any family. She told me she was an orphan from a trailer park in Idaho. That's why she clung to me so hard. Harrington waved a hand dismissively. Let her call them. Who's going to walk through that door? Some hillbilly cousin. It will only help our case, Derek. Let the judge see the trash she comes from. Very well. Judge Haynes sighed. Call your first witness. Samantha finally moved. She sat up straighter. The slump in her shoulders vanished. She turned her head toward Derek, and for the first time in months, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator watching a trap snap shut. The defense calls Theodore Teddy Roosevelt IV. No, that's too obvious, Samantha whispered to herself, then spoke clearly into the microphone. The defense calls William Blackwood. Wait, Blackwood might be generic. Let's go with a strong specific name. The defense calls General Thomas Sterling. Wait, I need to double-check the Sterling usage. The user didn't ban it in the prompt, but it's close to the user profile's dislike list. Let's be safer. Let's use General Archibald Kingsman. The defense calls Archibald Kingsman. The double doors at the back of the courtroom didn't just open. They were pushed aside by two men in dark suits with earpieces. Derek frowned. Security. Then an elderly man walked in. He was using a cane, but he walked with the posture of a man who owned the building. He wore a suit that cost more than Derek's car. His white hair was swept back, and his eyes were piercing blue, the exact same shade as Samantha's. The courtroom fell silent. Harrington, who had been checking his watch, froze. His face went pale. "Who is that?" Derek hissed. Harrington didn't answer. He was staring at the man. "State your name and relation to the defendant," the bailiff said. The old man took the stand. He looked at Samantha with pure adoration, then turned his gaze of icy contempt toward Derek. "My name is Archibald Kingsman," he boomed. "CEO of Kingsman Global Shipping and Logistics, former ambassador to the United Nations, and I am Samantha's father." Derek's jaw literally dropped. "What? Objection!" Harrington shouted, standing up too fast, knocking his chair over. This is impossible. My client's wife is from Idaho. Her maiden name is Collins." Archibald Kingsman leaned into the microphone. "She took her mother's maiden name to avoid people like you, Mr. Reynolds, people who only want money. She wanted to find someone who loved her for her, and she thought she found that in you. Clearly, we were all mistaken." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Reporters in the back row started typing furiously on their phones. "This is a circus," Harrington yelled. "Sit down, Mr. Harrington," Judge Haynes ordered, looking intrigued. "Mr. Kingsman, you may proceed." Archibald nodded. "You said my daughter has no resources, no support. Mr. Reynolds, you operate a tech company that relies on microchips from Taiwan. Correct?" Derek blinked, stunned. "Yes." "Kingsman Global handles 80% of the freight shipping for those chips," Archibald said calmly. "As of this morning, I have ordered a freeze on all Reynolds tech shipments, pending a review of ethical standards in your supply chain." "You can't do that," Derek screamed, standing up. "That will bankrupt me in a week." "Then perhaps," Archibald said, a cruel smile playing on his lips, "you should have read the prenup more carefully, or better yet, treated your wife with respect. But I'm not the only one here. You said she had no family. You invited the whole clan to the slaughter boy." Archibald pointed to the doors. "Meet her brothers." The silence in courtroom 4B was absolute, save for the frantic tapping of the court reporters, trying to keep up with reality shifting on its axis. Archibald Kingsman remained on the stand, a titan carved from granite, watching the doors he had just pointed to. Two men entered. They didn't stride. They occupied space. They were both tall, built like linebackers, fitted into Italian silk. They shared Samantha's striking blue eyes, but where hers had always been soft, theirs were predatory. The first man, perhaps 40, wore a charcoal suit tailored to surgical precision. He carried nothing but a slim tablet. He looked at Derek Reynolds the way a biochemist looks at a particularly interesting but ultimately disposable petri dish. The second man was slightly younger, with a sharper, more aggressive energy. He didn't look at Derek at all. His eyes were fixed instantly on Arthur Harrington Derrick's legendary lawyer, and for the first time in his career, Harrington looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. "Introduce yourselves to the court," Judge Haynes said. Leaning forward, her previous boredom completely evaporated. The first man stepped up to the railing near Samantha's table. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. She covered his hand with hers, a silent gesture of unbreakable solidarity. "Harrison Kingsman," he stated, his voice, a smooth baritone that echoed slightly. "Managing partner at Sovereign Capital New York. I handle the family's investment portfolio." The second man leaned casually against the railing, smirking. "Donovan Kingsman, senior partner at Cromwell and Sterling, D.C. I handle the family's problems." Derek looked frantic. "Harrington, do something. Who are these guys?" Harrington was pale. He leaned close to Derek, his famous confident whisper replaced by a hiss of pure panic. "You idiot! You complete absolute moron! Sovereign Capital basically owns the NASDAQ. And Donovan Kingsman. He was the youngest assistant attorney general in history, before he went private. He eats Supreme Court justices for breakfast. You didn't marry a nobody, Derek. You married American royalty." "Mr. Henderson," Judge Haynes addressed Samantha's seemingly sleepy lawyer, "are these men on your witness list?" Mr. Henderson stood up. He suddenly didn't look sleepy at all. His eyes were sharp. "They are, Your Honor. We call Mr. Harrison Kingsman to the stand as an expert witness regarding marital assets." Archibald stepped down, glaring at Derek one last time before taking a seat in the front row, right behind Samantha. Harrison took the stand. "Mr. Kingsman," Henderson began. "Mr. Reynolds claims my client is destitute and contributed nothing to his financial success. Can you speak to that?" Harrison tapped his tablet, pairing it with the courtroom's large monitor. A complex spreadsheet appeared. "Certainly," Harrison said. "It was amusing to hear Mr. Reynolds' initial filings. He claimed a net worth of roughly $400 million, tied mostly to Reynolds Tech stock. A substantial sum, to be sure. But incomplete." Derek stood up. "That's proprietary information. You can't show that." "Sit down, Mr. Reynolds," Judge Haynes snapped. "Overruled." Harrison swiped on the tablet. A new diagram appeared showing a web of offshore shell companies. "Derek made a common amateur mistake," Harrison explained to the judge, sounding bored. "When he started planning this divorce 6 months ago, coinciding with hiring Ms. Vanessa Holt, I believe he began siphoning company profits into accounts located in the Cayman Islands and Zurich. He hid approximately $150 million in liquid cash to keep it out of the settlement." The gallery gasped. Even Vanessa, sitting behind Derek, looked shocked. She stared at the back of Derek's head. "He told me he was worth $400 million, but he had cash hidden. Why didn't he tell me?" "Lies!" Derek shouted, sweating profusely. "Proof? Where is your proof?" Harrison smiled thinly. "The proof is on the screen, Derek. You see, you used a mid-tier bank for those transfers. Sovereign Capital acquired that bank 3 days ago. We own your secrets now." He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this constitutes fraud. He tried to hide marital assets. Under state law, that means my sister is entitled to not just half, but potentially all of the hidden assets as a penalty. Harrington tried to pivot. Your Honor, even if these alleged financial improprieties are true, it doesn't change the custody arrangement. The mother is still unemployed with no home. Donovan Kingsman, still leaning against the railing, laughed aloud. Unemployed Harrington, you really didn't do your due diligence, did you? Donovan held up a manila folder. Samantha stepped away from the family business to support her husband. It was a sabbatical. As of this morning, that sabbatical has ended. She has been reinstated to her position on the board of directors for Kingsman Global. Her annual salary is $2.5 million, not including stock options. He tossed another document onto Harrington's desk. It landed with a heavy thud. And as for a home, the family just purchased the Wentworth estate on the lake for her. It's a 12-bedroom property with excellent security. Lily will have her own wing. It's fully staffed, including tutors, and interestingly, the same nanny Derek just fired for testifying against Samantha. We rehired her at double the salary. Donovan walked over until he was standing directly in front of Derek. He leaned down, his voice low but audible to the entire room. You said she was simple, Derek. You said she was weak. You mistook kindness for weakness. You mistook silence for ignorance. You didn't just break a heart, little man. You declared war on a nuclear power. Donovan turned to the judge. Your Honor, in light of the demonstrated perjury and attempted fraud by Mr. Reynolds, we move for immediate temporary full custody to be awarded to Samantha Kingsman, pending a full investigation into Mr. Reynolds' business practices. Judge Haynes looked at Derek, who was currently trying to loosen his tie because he couldn't breathe. She looked at Harrington, who was defeated. She looked at Samantha, who sat surrounded by her powerful father and brothers, looking not triumphant, but sadly vindicated. I need a recess, Judge Haynes said, banging the gavel hard. 30 minutes. Counselor Harrington, I suggest you get your client under control before I throw him in a cell for contempt. The hallway outside the courtroom was pandemonium. The news had broken. Someone inside the courtroom had live tweeted the revelations. Kingsman's secret and Hart Reynolds' fraud were already trending globally. The idea that the simple housewife was actually the scion of one of the world's wealthiest, most secretive families was catnip for the media. Derek Reynolds burst through the courtroom doors, flanked by a pale Vanessa and a furious Harrington. Reporters swarmed them instantly, microphones thrust like swatten. Mr. Reynolds, did you hide $150 million from your wife? Derek, is Reynolds' tech stock crashing because of the shipping freeze? Vanessa, did you know he was still married when you started the affair? Derek pushed through them, his face a mask of rage and terror. He cornered Harrington near a water fountain. Fix this, Arthur. You said she was nothing. You said this would be easy. Harrington slapped Derek's hand away from his expensive suit. Don't touch me. You lied to me, Derek. You told me she was trailer trash from Idaho. If I knew her last name was Kingsman, I would have told you to give her half the company and beg for forgiveness on day one. Do you know who Donovan Kingsman is? He can have me disbarred by lunchtime tomorrow just for sport. Vanessa tugged on Derek's sleeve. Derek, what's happening? The stock. My options. They're tanking. You said we were going to be the new power couple. Derek spun on her, his eyes wild. The facade of the cool, collected tech genius was completely gone, revealing the nasty, insecure man underneath. Shut up, Vanessa. Just shut up. Are you stupid? Who cares about your options right now? I'm about to lose everything. This is your fault. You distracted me. If it weren't for you, Sam wouldn't have gone nuclear." Vanessa recoiled as if slapped. Tears welled up in her perfectly done makeup. "My fault. You chased me. You told me she was boring and frigid, and you needed someone on your level." "Yeah, well, clearly I miscalculated my level," Derek sneered. "Get out of here. Go back to the office and try to spin this. If there's even a company left to go back to." He dismissed her like a servant. Vanessa stood there humiliated, realizing in a single sickening moment that she wasn't the new queen. She was just the getaway car for a robbery that had gone spectacularly wrong. Just then the courtroom doors opened again. The hallway quieted down instantly. Samantha emerged first. She walked with a new cadence, the walk she had learned as a child, the walk of someone who knows they are protected. Archibald was on her left, Harrison and Donovan on her right. They formed a phalanx of wealth and power that parted the sea of reporters without saying a word. Derek saw her. He saw the woman he had discarded. She looked radiant, not because of money, but because the weight of his oppression was gone. Desperation clawed at Derek's throat. He lunged toward her, breaking through his own security. Sammy, wait!" Donovan stepped in front of Samantha instantly, his hand raised to Derek's chest, stopping him cold. It wasn't a violent shove, just an immovable object meeting a very weak force. "Don't," Donovan warned, his voice dropping 50 degrees. "I need to talk to my wife," Derek pleaded, looking past Donovan to Samantha. "Sam, please. This has gone too far. Your dad, he's killing the company. Thousands of jobs, Sam. Think about the employees. We can fix this. We can talk. Just the two of us like the old days." Samantha stopped. She motioned for Donovan to step aside. She looked at Derek, really looked at him for the first time in years. She saw the sweat on his brow, the fear in his eyes. She remembered the man who used to hold her hand while they watched cheap movies on a laptop. That man was dead. "The old days are gone, Derek," she said. Her voice calm and clear, carrying over the sound of clicking cameras. "You killed them. You wanted to fight. You wanted to use the law to hurt me and take Lily. Well, I brought the law." "But the company," Derek begged. "It's my life's work." Harrison stepped forward, checking his watch. "Actually, about that. Since the shipping freeze was announced 20 minutes ago, and the news of your fraud broke, Reynolds Tech stock has dropped 38%. It's in free fall." Harrison held up his phone, showing a stock ticker that was entirely red. "Sovereign Capital just initiated a hostile takeover bid," Harrison said casually. "We're buying up the distressed stock. By the time the market closes today, my firm will likely own a controlling interest in Reynolds Tech." Derek looked like he was going to vomit. You're stealing my company." "We're acquiring it," Harrison corrected, "and the first order of business for the new board will be firing the CEO for gross misconduct and financial malfeasance. You're done, Derek. You don't have a company. You don't have a wife. You don't have a reputation." Samantha stepped closer, her blue eyes hard. "You said I wasn't built for success, Derek. You were right. I'm not built for your kind of success, the kind that requires stepping on everyone who ever loved you. But don't worry. I'll make sure Lily is raised to be strong. She'll know exactly who her family is, and she'll know exactly who her father was." She turned to Donovan. "Let's go finish this inside." The Kingsmans turned and walked back into the courtroom. Derek was left standing in the hallway, the flashes of the cameras blinding him, capturing the exact moment his entire world disintegrated. Harrington looked at his client with utter disgust, already composing the press release where he would drop Derek as a client due to irreconcilable ethical differences. Derek looked around for Vanessa, for anyone to tell him it was going to be okay. But Vanessa was gone. He was utterly, completely alone. And the trial hadn't even technically resumed. The courtroom air had changed. It was no longer stale and bureaucratic. It was charged with the electricity of a brewing storm. When the session resumed, Arthur Harrington was gone. In his place sat a younger, sweaty lawyer named Kevin Miller. Note-checking ban list. Miller is banned. Correcting to Kevin Slater. Kevin Slater was a strip mall attorney Derek had frantically retained over the phone during the recess because Harrington refused to represent a client who had committed perjury. Derek sat alone at his table, looking like a man trying to hold onto a cliff edge with greased fingers. Across the aisle, the Kingsman phalanx was calm. Samantha sat in the middle, flanked by her father and brothers. She didn't look at Derek. She was looking at a photo of Lily on the desk. "Mr. Slater," Judge Haynes said, her patience visibly thinning. "Do you have any defense to offer regarding the allegations of hidden assets?" Slater stood up, tugging at a collar that was too tight. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Reynolds maintains that the funds were merely parked for future investment opportunities. He had no intention of permanently concealing them." Donovan Kingsman didn't even stand up. He just leaned into his microphone. "Parked in a shell company named New Life Holdings, registered to a P.O. box in the Cayman Islands. That sounds less like parking and more like smuggling." "Sustained," Judge Haynes said dryly. "Let's move to the matter of custody. This is my primary concern. Mr. Reynolds, you are petitioning for full custody based on the mother's lack of fitness." Derek stood up. He had to pivot. The money was gone, the company was going, but if he could hurt Samantha, if he could take Lily, he could still win something. He could still force the Kingsmans to pay him a ransom. "Yes, Your Honor," Derek said, his voice shaking but gaining strength. "Regardless of my financial errors, the fact remains that Samantha lied to me for 10 years. She pretended to be poor. She pretended to be a nobody. This proves a pathological level of deceit. How can we trust a woman who hides her entire identity? She is clearly mentally unstable. She suffers from delusions of, or rather a compulsion to deceive. A child cannot be raised in that environment of lies." It was a desperate, vicious angle. He was gaslighting her one last time, using her humility as a weapon. Samantha flinched. The accusation stung because it twisted her greatest act of love, giving up her privilege to build a real life with him, into a sickness. Mr. Henderson, emboldened by the heavy hitters behind him, stood up. "Your Honor, we would like to call our final witness regarding the environment Mr. Reynolds provided. We call Ms. Beatrice O'Connell." A heavy-set older woman with kind eyes and a fierce expression walked in. She was the housekeeper Derek had fired 3 years ago because she smelled like cleaning fluid. Derek frowned. "What does she know?" Beatrice took the stand. "Ms. O'Connell," Henderson asked, "you worked in the Reynolds household for 4 years, correct?" "I did," she nodded, "until Mr. Reynolds fired me for refusing to throw away Mrs. Reynolds' garden vegetables." "Did you ever witness Mr. Reynolds interacting with his daughter Lily?" Beatrice narrowed her eyes at Derek. "I did, if you can call it interacting. Please elaborate." "He ignored the child," Beatrice stated flatly. "But worse than that, he treated her like an employee. When Lily was 4, she drew him a picture. He told her the perspective was off, and she needed to optimize her output if she wanted to be successful. He made a 4-year-old cry over a crayon drawing. "Objection hearsay," Slater yelped. I have recordings, Beatrice said, calmly pulling a USB drive from her purse. I installed a nanny cam in the kitchen because I was worried about how he spoke to Mrs. Reynolds when she wasn't looking. I thought he might hit her. He never hit her, but he cut her with words every day. Judge Haynes accepted the drive. Play it. The courtroom monitor flickered to life. The footage was grainy, taken from a high angle in a kitchen. It showed Derek, younger, pacing, while Samantha cooked dinner with a toddler, Lily, on her hip. Video Derek. You're useless, Sam. I asked for the blue tie. You brought the navy one. Do you even have a brain, or is it just filled with recipes and baby talk? Video. Samantha. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm tired. Lily was up all night with a fever. Video, Derek. I don't care about the fever. I have a meeting with investors. If I fail, it's your fault. You drag me down. You're an anchor, Sam. A heavy, rusty anchor. The video cut to another clip. Derek was on the phone, unaware Samantha was in the room. Video Derek. Yeah, Vanessa. No, I can't leave her yet. The IPO is next month. I need the family man image. Once the stock vests, I'm dumping the dead weight. And the kid I don't know, boarding school maybe. She's too much like her mother. Soft. Pathetic. The screen went black. The silence in the courtroom was heavy, suffocating. Derek Reynolds sat frozen. He couldn't deny his own voice. He couldn't spin his own cruelty. Judge Haynes took off her glasses. She looked at Derek with an expression of profound disappointment. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said, her voice quiet and dangerous. You argued that the mother is unfit because she didn't tell you she was an heiress. Yet the evidence suggests she hid her wealth specifically to avoid this. To avoid being used by a narcissist who views his own wife and child as commodities. Donovan Kingsman stood up then. He didn't smile. He looked like an executioner. Your Honor, Donovan said, we also have the toxicology report from the hair sample Mr. Reynolds provided for the insurance physical last month. We subpoenaed it. He handed a paper to the bailiff. Positive for cocaine, Donovan read. High levels, consistent with daily use. Work trips, I assume. Derek slumped in his chair. It was over. The house of cards hadn't just fallen. It had been incinerated. I have heard enough, Judge Haynes said, stacking her papers. I am ready to rule. The verdict was scorching. It was a total evisceration of Derek Reynolds' life. The ruling won. Divorce granted on grounds of adultery and cruelty. 2. Custody. Sole legal and physical custody of Lily Reynolds awarded to Samantha Kingsman. Derek was granted supervised visitation once a month, pending the completion of a 2-year drug rehabilitation and anger management program. 3. Financials due to the proven fraud and hiding of assets, the prenuptial agreement was voided. The judge invoked a rare breach of fiduciary duty penalty. Derek was ordered to pay Samantha $50 million in punitive damages. Since his liquid cash was seized and his stock was plummeting. This meant total liquidation. 4. Restraining order. A permanent restraining order prevented Derek from coming within 500 yards of Samantha Lilly or any Kingsman property. Derek walked out of the courthouse alone. There were no cameras this time. The media had gotten their story, The Kingsman Secret, and had already moved on to interviewing the glamorous brothers. Derek was old news. He was a cautionary tale. He hailed a taxi because his Tesla had been remotely disabled by the leasing company during the trial. His credit cards were declined at the first hotel he tried. He ended up in a cheap motel near the airport, the kind of place with flickering neon signs and thin walls. He sat on the lumpy mattress, staring at the peeling wallpaper. He checked his phone. No messages. Vanessa had blocked him on everything. His friends from the tech world, the ones who drank his scotch and laughed at his jokes about his boring wife, had all unfollowed him. He was exactly where he had told Samantha she belonged nowhere. 3 months later, the charity gala for the New Horizons Foundation was the event of the season in Seattle. The ballroom was a sea of diamonds, tuxedos, and champagne. Samantha Kingsman stood at the center of the room, but she didn't look like the woman from the courtroom. She wore a gown of emerald green silk that hugged her figure, her hair cascading in loose, confident waves. She was laughing at something a tall, handsome man was saying. The man was Dr. Ethan Caldwell, a renowned pediatric surgeon. He was kind, brilliant, and according to the tabloids, completely smitten with the Phoenix of Seattle, as they now called Samantha. "So you're telling me," Ethan laughed, holding 2 flutes of sparkling water, "that your brother Donovan actually bought the building Derek's new apartment is in. He didn't just buy the building." Samantha smiled, her eyes crinkling. "He bought the management company. He wanted to make sure the rent was strictly enforced." Ethan shook his head. "Remind me never to cross a Kingsman." "Just be honest," Samantha said softly, touching his arm. "That's all we ever ask for." Across the street, in the shadows of an alleyway, a man in a hooded sweatshirt watched the glowing entrance of the hotel. Derek looked 10 years older. He hadn't shaved in weeks. He was working at a warehouse now, moving boxes. Ironically, some of them were Kingsman Global shipping containers. He watched Samantha through the glass doors. He saw the way she threw her head back and laughed. He saw the way Dr. Caldwell looked at her with respect, with awe. He saw the life he could have had if he hadn't been so blinded by greed and ego. He had held a diamond in his hand and thrown it away because he thought it was just a rock. A black SUV pulled up to the curb near him. The window rolled down. It was Harrison Kingsman. Derek froze. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Harrison didn't look angry. He looked pitying. He held out a small envelope. "Take it," Harrison said. "What is it?" Derek rasped, his voice hoarse. "A bus ticket," Harrison said. "One way, to Ohio. We have a distant branch office there that needs a janitor. It's a job. It's a start. But if you stay in Seattle, if you try to see her again the next time I see, you won't be from a car." Derek took the envelope. His hands were shaking. "Does she know?" Derek asked. "Does she know I'm here?" Harrison looked toward the ballroom, where Samantha was now dancing with Ethan. She looked free. "No," Harrison said, rolling up the window. "She doesn't think about you at all." The SUV drove away, disappearing into the city lights. Derek stood there for a long moment, clutching the ticket. He looked at the ballroom one last time. He saw Samantha spin her dress, flaring out a vision of joy and power. He realized then that the punishment wasn't the poverty. It wasn't the humiliation. The punishment was knowing that she was happy, and he had absolutely nothing to do with it. He turned around, pulled his hood up against the rain, and started walking toward the bus station. 5 years later. The skyline of Seattle had changed, but not as much as Samantha Kingsman. She stood on the balcony of the new Kingsman Caldwell Foundation headquarters, a gleaming glass spire that overlooked the Puget Sound. The wind whipped at her tailored white blazer, but she didn't shiver. She had forgotten how to shiver years ago. Inside the penthouse suite behind her, the air was filled with the low hum of high-stakes commerce. Today was the acquisition of Omnicorp, a rival logistics firm that had tried to undercut Kingsman Global's shipping routes. "They're stalling on the valuation of the Asian distribution centers," Harrison said, walking out onto the balcony with a crystal tumbler of sparkling water. His hair was grayer now, distinguished, but his eyes were just as sharp. "They think because you're heading the negotiation, they can charm you into a discount." Samantha turned, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "They think I'm the nice Kingsman because I run the charity arm." "That's cute." "Victor Drazen is old school," Harrison warned. "He knew Derek. He thinks you were the trophy wife who got lucky with a genetic lottery ticket. He doesn't know you're the one who restructured our entire European supply chain last year." "Then let's go educate him," Samantha said, stepping back inside. The conference room was imposing. Victor Drazen, a man in his 60s with a cigar-stained voice and a suit that cost more than a mid-sized sedan, sat at the head of the table. He didn't stand when Samantha entered. "Samantha," Victor nodded condescendingly. "Or should I say Mrs. Caldwell, now lovely to see you. I was just telling your brother here that this price point is simply aggressive. We're not selling a lemonade stand." Samantha took the seat at the opposite end. She didn't open a folder. She didn't look at a tablet. She simply folded her hands on the table and held his gaze. "Mr. Drazen," she began, her voice soft but carrying the weight of a gavel. "You're right. You're not selling a lemonade stand. You're selling a failing logistics network that is currently under investigation by the EPA for dumping waste in international waters off the coast of Indonesia. An investigation, I might add, that is set to go public next Tuesday." Victor froze. The condescending smile vanished instantly. That is a rumor, unsubstantiated." "It's a dossier," Samantha corrected. "One that my husband Ethan stumbled upon while coordinating medical relief ships in the area, and one that my brother Donovan verified with his contacts at The Hague." She slid a single piece of paper across the long marble table. It wasn't a contract. It was a press release drafted and ready to send. "Option A," Samantha said, holding up a finger. "We buy Omnicorp at the price I set, which is fair considering the liability we're absorbing. We clean up your mess, we rebrand, and you retire with your dignity and a very healthy golden parachute." She held up a second finger. "Option B. You walk out of here thinking you can bully the trophy wife." I release this statement. Your stock tanks by morning. The EPA fines bankrupt you by Christmas. And you spend your retirement explaining to your shareholders why you lost everything. The room was silent. Harrison watched his sister with open pride. This was the woman Derek Reynolds had called simple. This was the woman who had supposedly needed a man to survive. Victor Drazen looked at the paper, then at Samantha. He saw the steel behind the blue eyes. He realized too late that he wasn't dealing with a socialite. He was dealing with a shark who had learned to swim in the deepest waters. "Where do I sign?" Victor whispered. "Chatu, the Karma of Ohio." 2,000 miles away, in a dingy break room of a generic office park in Cleveland. Ohio. A man named Rick sat eating a ham sandwich out of a plastic bag. He looked older than his 45 years. His hairline had receded. His face was puffy from cheap alcohol and sleepless nights, and his hands were rough from mopping floors. "Hey, Rick," a younger janitor called out, pointing to the small TV mounted in the corner. "Isn't that the lady from the magazines, the one who built those schools in Africa?" Rick, formerly known as Derek Reynolds, looked up. On the screen, CNN was covering the Woman of the Year gala. Samantha looked breathtaking in a gold gown holding the hand of Dr. Ethan Caldwell. They were laughing, looking at each other with a genuine electric connection that Derek had never experienced, not even in the beginning. Reporter Samantha Kingsman Caldwell has once again redefined what it means to be a power player. Following her acquisition of Omnicorp, she has pledged 50% of the profits to ocean cleanup initiatives. She is joined tonight by her daughter Lily, a junior chess champion. The camera panned to a teenage girl. Lily was 15 now. She stood tall, confident, wearing a suit instead of a dress, looking fiercely intelligent. Derek felt a physical blow to his gut. That was his daughter. He hadn't seen her in 5 years. He hadn't sent a birthday card because the restraining order and his own shame prevented it. "She's something else, huh?" the young janitor said, shaking his head. "Imagine being married to a woman like that. You'd have to be the luckiest guy on earth, or the dumbest guy in history, to let her go." Derek stopped chewing. The ham sandwich tasted like ash. "Yeah," Derek whispered, his voice cracking. "The dumbest guy in history." He stood up, crumpled his lunch bag, and tossed it in the trash. He walked back to his cart, grabbed his mop, and went back to cleaning the hallway of a company he would never own in a life he had earned every second of. Back in Seattle, the gala was winding down. The ballroom was empty, save for the staff cleaning up and the inner circle of the Kingsman family. Samantha sat on the edge of the stage, her heels kicked off. Ethan sat next to her, loosening his bow tie. Lily was sitting with her uncles Donovan and Harrison, who were currently arguing over who had taught her the winning move in her last chess tournament. "Uncle Donovan told me to sacrifice the night." Lily laughed, her voice bright and unburdened. "But Uncle Harrison told me to hoard my resources." "And what did you do?" Samantha asked, looking at her daughter with fierce love. "I ignored them both," Lily grinned. "I took the queen." Archibald Kingsman, seated in a plush armchair nearby, tapped his cane on the floor in approval. "That's my girl. Kingsmans don't play the game, others set for them. We flip the board." Samantha leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. He kissed her forehead. "You okay?" he murmured. "You seemed a little distant during the speech." "I was just thinking," Samantha said quietly. "About him?" Ethan asked. He was secure enough never to be jealous of a ghost. "About the lie," she said. "For 10 years I believed I was powerless. I believed his narrative that I was lucky he chose me, that I was small, that I was nothing without him. He brainwashed me into thinking my kindness was a defect." She looked at her hands, hands that had signed billion-dollar contracts and bandaged scraped knees, and held the man she truly loved. "But it wasn't a defect," she continued. "It was armor. He couldn't break me because I knew who I was, even when I couldn't say it out loud. And when he finally stripped everything away, he just revealed the steel underneath." Donovan walked over, handing Samantha a glass of champagne. "To the discard pile." He toasted a dark humor in his eyes. "May it always remain in the rear-view mirror." "No," Samantha said, clinking her glass against his. "To the trial, because without it, I never would have remembered that I'm the judge, the jury, and the executioner of my own life." She stood up, pulling Lily into a hug, flanked by her husband and her family. "Come on," Samantha said, her voice ringing out in the empty hall. "Let's go home. We have an early morning. I promised Lily I'd teach her how to initiate a hostile takeover before breakfast." Lily laughed. "Mum, I just want waffles." "We can do both," Samantha winked. They walked out of the ballroom doors, leaving the lights behind them. They stepped into the cool Seattle night, a united front, unbreakable and victorious. Samantha Kingsman had walked through the fire of betrayal and come out not as ash, but as a diamond, hard, brilliant, and absolutely untouchable. And that is how Samantha Kingsman turned a divorce trial into the total destruction of the man who underestimated her. Derek Reynolds thought he was discarding a simple wife, but he forgot the most important rule of the jungle: never corner a predator, especially one that has been pretending to be prey. He lost his fortune, his family, and his future, proving that while money talks, true power and family roars. Derek is out there somewhere, mopping floors and watching the woman he called weak run the world. It's a harsh lesson, but a fair one. When you marry a good woman, you treat her like a queen, or you might just find out she has an entire army waiting in the wings to take your kingdom. What do you think? Did Derek get what he deserved, or was the punishment too harsh? And would you have hidden your wealthy family from your spouse to test their love like Samantha did? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of hard karma and sweet revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story about justice being served cold. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.